review of the Sigma 24 to 105 f4IS lens. I've known about this lens for quite a while. I've known that it's very sharp. I was looking around for a more versatile lens to take with me on my Italy trip. I've got a 24 to 70 f2.8, I've got a 70 to 200 f2.8, and I've got several prime lenses, but none of those, except for the 70-200, have image stabilization and give me kind of a do-it-all range that the 24 to 105 provides. So I reached out to my friends at Lumoid and rented this, the 24 to 105, as a lens that I could walk around with from day to day in Italy and capture most of the shots that I wanted to, and also shoot some handheld video with the image stabilization in there. What I want to do is take a few moments and hit on the pros of this lens, touch on the cons, because there are a few, and then talk in a little bit more detail about some of the results I found shooting with it in Italy. All of the pros and cons I'm talking about are as a result of shooting in Italy, but I want to talk specifically about what I found and how it worked personally for me. Bottom line that I often start my reviews with is that there is no lens out there that offers this great a range at this sharpness. It is extremely sharp from 24 to 105. Really happy with the results. There was not a single shot I saw, even when I did pixel peeping, that I was disappointed with the results. It is limited to f4, and we'll talk more about that in a second. The image stabilization is another pro. I mean, just fantastic. Up to 4 stops I found of handheld image stabilization. But it is not the smart kind of image stabilization where you can put it on a tripod and it will be smart enough to turn itself off or not to ruin your pictures. I was burned a couple times because I'm not used to using a lens with image stabilization in this range, left it on for longer exposures on the tripod, and those pictures are unusably soft because of the image stabilization. If you didn't know that was a thing, it is. And there are some lenses with image stabilization that's smart enough to detect that it's on a tripod and basically not ruin your pictures. This is not, however, one of them. The range that this lens offers from 24 to 105 is very nice. On a full frame sensor, 24 is quite wide. It's not wide angle, but it is quite wide, all the way up to 105. That's a great range, and I found that it to be very useful. When I first started to dig into the metadata of my photos from Italy, it looked like I didn't really use the upper range very much. But then I realized I was missing a component, added that in, and 25% of my pictures were above the 70mm mark. And of that, almost 1/3 of my starred images, the images that I say, hey, these are worth sharing out with family and friends and photography community, almost 1/3 are in that 70 to 105 range. Now, I could, of course, had the 70 to 200 with me on most of those days and switched over to that if I was shooting with just the 24 to 70. But as I said, this allowed me to keep the 70 to 200 at home most days or back at the hotel so that I wasn't lugging it around. The other great pro about this lens is its price. It comes in at $899. The Canon 24 to 105 is more expensive, currently sitting at about $1150. There's the Canon 24 to 70 f4IS, which is also a few $100s more. So not only are you getting an excellent range, very sharp, I found this to be sharper than Canon's 24 to 105, on par with the 24 to 70 f4 and f2.8. But you are getting it cheaper than any of those other lenses as well. So that's great. All those are pros. Let's touch on the cons a little bit. Well, one I already mentioned is that you are limited to f4 an aperture as your widest aperture. That limits you in your creative control of background blur. And also, I really felt that shooting in lower light situations where I wanted to freeze moving subjects. I found myself at very high ISOs. That's not when the image stabilization is helpful. That really only helps you in keeping motion blur from ruining your photos. If you have a moving subject, at those shutter speeds, you're still going to see blur. So f4 feels limiting. The other con about this lens is it is heavy. So I was looking for a do-it-all travel lens that would let me leave my 70 to 200 f2.8 IS back in the room, as I said, which is extremely heavy. So you got to take the pros with the cons, but this lens weighs almost 2 pounds by itself. That is an extremely heavy lens. The 24-105 from Canon is about 1/3 of a pound less. The 24-70 is over a 1/2 pound less. So pretty significant differences, both the f4 IS and the f2.8 without IS. So you're not going to necessarily be traveling lighter with this lens, but as I said, you're getting that amazing sharpness, you're getting really good image stabilization, and that useful range. Another con that I have on my list is that the 82mm filter size is quite large, so your filters are going to be expensive for this, and it's not weather sealed. So Sigma is producing some wonderful lenses. They're prime lenses. We have the 50 and the 35 for our wedding business. They are exceptionally sharp, love them, but they are not weather sealed, and neither is this. Canon's version of the 24-105 f4 IS is weather sealed, dust proof, and Canon's 24-70 f4 IS is. Did I say one's the 24-105, one's the 24-70? Both of those are weather sealed. So if you're going to find yourself out shooting in all kinds of conditions, weather conditions, this may not be the best option for you. So one last small con, haha, no pun intended, is the focusing ring on this camera is much smaller than on the Canons. And when you're doing video, I don't really mind it for photos. You find it and you focus. But for video, it's nice to have that bigger area to grab and focus when you're shooting handheld video, or even when you're on a monopod or tripod, to be able to really grab and pull in your focus nice and easily. So let's talk a little bit more about the Italy trip just for a few moments, because I wanted to share some stats with you. So you can see from this chart right here that this is a cool plugin from Jeffrey Fielding that gives you give it a series of pictures and it will spit out this information for you. I took about 1,000 images in Italy with this lens. Almost a quarter of them were above the 70mm range, and as I said, almost 1/3 of my starred images were in that range as well. So a really useful range across the board, but you can see that typically I shot a lot of them at 24mm. Now, there were some people that were surprised to see that I didn't go on the trip with an even wider angle lens. I don't remember any time during the trip wishing that I had a wider angle lens than 24. It's clear from this chart that I did shoot at that focal length often, and I do remember more than a few times backing up to get the shot that I wanted. And there are times and places where backing up isn't an option and you do want to go a little wider, but I didn't run into that on this trip. One of the things that you can do, of course, is take multiple shots and then stitch them together afterwards. Certainly not as easy as taking a single shot with a wide angle lens. That was all on a full frame. I will share a little bit of information. You know, when you're thinking about on a crop sensor, 24 is certainly not as wide. You got to multiply it by 1.6 or 1.5 depending on what camera you're shooting with. And you get a lot more telephoto there, but you certainly do not get as wide. So when we're talking about this lens versus some others, you certainly need to consider whether or not you're shooting on a full frame sensor or a crop sensor. On a full frame sensor, if you know that you're not going to be shooting in bad weather conditions or have the ability to put it away or keep it safe when there's serious rain or serious dusty conditions, then this lens is absolutely fantastic. If you want a versatile lens for video work, especially handheld, absolutely a fantastic option. But on a crop sensor, I would be more inclined to go with Sigma's 18-35 f2.8, unless you're doing video work. That 18-35 gives you a very similar wide angle range, not quite as much telephoto, but you do have that really nice fast apertures. Consider, if you wanted to walk around with this, also bringing along a nice little prime with you for when you want to travel really light. I've got lots of reasons why you should shoot or have a prime with you often. And one of the things that you could do is throw that on when you want to travel lighter, as I said. Another option is the really nice 35 f2 IS. Now you say, wait a second, you're going from talking about a lens that offers 24-105 to a prime lens fixed at 35. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot smaller, it gives you that really nice image stabilization, it gives you a faster aperture, and for a lot of video work, it's a really nice focal length. Certainly still not as versatile as 24-105, but your pocket's going to thank you and your shoulder's going to thank you if you're carrying this around for long periods of time. How does it compare to the 24-105 f4 from Canon? As I said, well, it's not weather sealed, but it is cheaper and it is sharper. Undoubtedly, noticeably sharper at most of the focal lengths, and where the sweet spot of the Canon 24-105 is in the middle of the range, it's about even. Still gives the Sigma a little bit sharper. IS is very similar in both of those. Versus the 24-70, as I said, you save a little bit of weight, you save a little bit of money with the 24-105, but you're giving up a little bit of range that if you want to carry around one lens that's going to do most of the job for you, this lens would be a better pick. And then of course there's the 24-70 f2.8, which I shoot at weddings with often, and it's a fantastic lens, but for video work handheld, it doesn't offer image stabilization. Are there other lenses that this should be compared to? Let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to talk a little bit more detail about those. But for now, I think that is all I need to say about the 24-105 f4 IS from Sigma. Exceptionally sharp, as most of these Art Series lenses are, and offers a very useful range if you're willing to carry around a heavy lens and be limited to the f4 widest aperture. If you found this review helpful, take a moment and hit that thumbs up button. That really helps me and I appreciate it. And if you have not subscribed already, please do. Lots more video reviews coming, exciting stuff coming as we work our way towards the holiday season and beyond. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.